I'm Priscilla LeBlanc, and I'm here today with Kaylin Rovinescu. Kaylin recently held town hall presentations for employees in Montreal, Toronto, Calgary, and Vancouver. Based on the turnout at these sessions, it's clear that employees are engaged and want to know more about our future. Bonjour, Kaylin.
Bonjour, Priscilla.
Pour les employés qui n'ont pu assister aux présentations, en quelques mots, pouvez-vous nous dire qu'est-ce qu'ils devraient retenir au sujet de notre progrès l'année dernière, ainsi que nos priorités pour le futur?
Merci, Priscilla. D'abord, il faut dire que je suis très fier de ce que nous avons accompli en 2010. Nous avons livré des résultats records pour la compagnie, un profit avant impôts, intérêts, etc. de 1,4 milliard de dollars, un profit net pour la première fois depuis 2007. Nous avons été capables de couper à peu près 320 millions de dollars en coûts. Le cours de nos actions ont presque triplé durant l'année et nous avons fini l'année avec plus que 2 milliards de dollars en liquidités.
And there was more than just financial success, wasn't there?
No, indeed. We created some 500 jobs in 2010, and this, of course, at a time when there was mass unemployment in all of North America. We obtained the rights to fly into the Billy Bishop Airport in downtown Toronto. We won a series of customer service awards, including Skytrax's Best Airline in North America. Our employee surveys showed that employee engagement was up some 20%. And so therefore, I think, considering where we were in 2009 and the challenges we were facing that threatened our very survival, it's quite an impressive turnaround that I'm very, very proud of.
But there are challenges ahead, aren't there?
Well, unfortunately, when we're dealing with the airline industry, success and positive news is often short-lived. And so right now we face, again, near record fuel prices. We've seen, the total cost of fuel for us based on our estimates for 2011 starting to approach $800 million of increased fuel cost. Also, we have our pension situation. While we continue to reduce our pension deficit, it is still over $2 billion and therefore continues to be a real threat for us. And finally, competition. The competition is getting more intense. We're seeing increased competition from the low-cost carriers. We're starting to see increased competition on the international front, as well as from some very, very well-capitalized international carriers.
Let's talk a bit more about competition, because you spent a lot of time during the road shows talking about competition and growth. And recently, there's been quite a bit of media coverage about Air Canada's plans for a low-cost carrier. Can you fill in the blanks for us?
Of course, but first of all, this is not the product launch. We're still in very early days, and so you'll appreciate that as the process unfolds, I think our employees will hear lots more about it. We want to be able to compete in this leisure market, and this leisure market tends to be filled by carriers who have a significantly lower cost structure, often 30%. And so for us to be able to continue to service some of these sun destinations that we've done very well in, for us to continue to go to some of these European destinations that we previously served, and especially to tackle some new markets, we need to have a product that is really capable of competing with the low-cost carriers.
So we're looking to compete with Air Transat more effectively.
Companies like Air Transat, like WestJet, Virgin, even people talk about some of the Gulf carriers that have very, very powerful governments behind them, and therefore a lower cost structure. For us to be able to compete in all of these markets, it is our sense that this low-cost carrier could be a very valuable tool in our toolkit.
Why do you think that it would have an advantage over these other carriers if we could bring our costs more in line? What would we be offering? What would be our strength in this particular niche market?
Well, we have, as I said earlier, because of the strength of our brand and the very, very expansive route rights that we have, we can fly to virtually anywhere in the world. And so the combination of the loyalty program, Aeroplan, the Air Canada Vacations brand, plus the network and route rights, give us the ability to access leisure markets virtually anywhere in the world assuming we can make a compelling business case. However, we have many advantages. We have some weaknesses, and part of the weakness is this 30% cost disadvantage. When we look at the strategies to tackle that, we need to be able to have a product that is capable of competing.
But the question in everyone's mind is, what does that mean for Air Canada employees?
Well, Priscilla, it starts like this. The low-cost carrier is intended to allow us to purchase more airplanes. More airplanes will mean more jobs. More jobs, of course, means more opportunity. It's our intention that the low-cost carrier will have 50 airplanes, if all goes well, by 2015. And these 50 airplanes will create lots of jobs. We've talked about 450 pilot jobs. And even if we have half that number by 2015, our expectation in block hours is about 100,000 incremental block hours, say at 25 airplanes. So about 450 pilot jobs, probably 3 or 4 times that number of flight attendant jobs. And employees who go over there would not take any pay cut. There would not be any benefit reduction for going over there, but we would be starting for new employees a different scale that would be competitive with the leisure carriers in terms of pay, work rules, et cetera. That would certainly be the vision. That's the idea, to allow us to adequately compete in that marketplace. So from my perspective, it's my belief that Air Canada employees certainly have nothing to fear. And based on the initial comments that we've seen so far in the media, it seems that those that have something to fear are indeed our competitors.
But Calin, we've tried something somewhat similar to this in the past. What's going to be different this time?
You're right. About 7 or 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago now, we had 2 separate low-cost brands that were created. One was called Tango, another was called Zip. Tango ended up being a great experiment that morphed into a product category that is still available and still sold as a Tango fare, one of the most successful fare categories that we have. And Zip was a separate airline that we created, but it had several weaknesses. It had a limited number of aircraft. We were not at that stage able to get to anything approaching 50 aircraft, so it had small scale. It was only domestic. It used 737s. And I'd say that now, with the benefit of a decade of experience, we intend that this is international, flying to some of these largely leisure destinations. We also have the benefit of the model that Qantas created with Jetstar. This is one of the most successful models of a low-cost carrier emerging out of a legacy carrier. And again, this has permitted Qantas to preserve more jobs, create more jobs, fly to new destinations, and really tackle some of the low-cost competition that existed there. So we have the benefit of a decade's worth of incremental vision here. We're talking about different aircraft and, frankly, something with much greater scale and hopefully an appropriate cost structure.
I think the Jetstar comparison is one that should be comforting for a lot of employees because that's been remarkably successful for Qantas.
Very much so. Very much so. I think Qantas, when we look at Qantas's numbers of airplanes over this period of time, we've seen that they've managed to continue to have the scale. One of our issues, and I did this math in the past, we had 214 aircraft in 2000. And at the end of 2010, we have 202 aircraft in the mainline fleet. Wide bodies, we had 70 wide bodies in 2000. We have 56 wide bodies at the end of 2010. And so we see that there's been a gradual erosion in our fleet size and therefore by extension in our jobs and by extension in the opportunities that we can have to fly to some of these destinations.
It's just challenging to grow with the current legacy model exclusively right now.
Exactly. It gives us that doesn't mean that the legacy model is not good. We've proven in 2010 we can be very strong as a legacy carrier, but we're leaving lots and lots of opportunities behind unless we do something like this.
Calin, sur notre portail, on reçoit souvent des questions d'employés nous demandant pourquoi on ne lance pas de service à certaines destinations internationales dont on reconnaît une forte demande.
Mais moi aussi, j'ai cette question très, très souvent parce qu'effectivement, le Canada est tellement multiculturel qu'on a tellement de nationalités où les gens disent comment ça se fait qu'on ne peut pas desservir tel endroit ou tel autre endroit. Et avec cette compagnie, avec cet outil additionnel qu'on va créer, on va être capable de rechercher et de trouver et de desservir les marchés qu'on ne peut pas desservir dans notre structure actuelle.
Donc, on pense à des destinations comme Lyon, Nice, Casablanca, possiblement Tunis.
Exactement. Nous avons une longue liste de destinations qu'on est en train d'étudier. Et une fois que le projet sera adéquatement amorcé, on va l'annoncer.
And finally, Kaylin, during your town hall presentations, you shared with our employees the challenges that we're facing relating to our pension plans. What kind of changes are we facing?
Well, Priscilla, first let me say that I'm not going to comment per se on specifics of any changes, given that we're into this collective bargaining process. But there's no doubt, and as I've said repeatedly over the last 2 years, the pension plans present very significant challenges for Air Canada going forward. There's no question about it. We have 29,000 pensioners, while we have only 26,000 employees. Our pension plan has aggregate liabilities of $13 billion. It's one of the largest pension plans in Canada. As a result of that, we're currently making current service payments of about $245 million. And on the deficit payments that we are now starting to make, the deficit payments that had been suspended for a period of time, these are very, very, very large amounts. And so what we need to do is start tackling the things we need to tackle to ensure that over a long term, Air Canada will be sustainable, will survive, and be able to deal with its pension challenges. So essentially, broad picture, we have two that have been discussed and that have come out of the media reports recently. One is migrating to a defined contribution program for new employees. As I said repeatedly since I was appointed as CEO, I'm not asking any employee to migrate from a defined benefit to a defined contribution. We're talking strictly about new hires, new employees, and this is what has been put on the table. And secondly, there are a series of formula modifications that are being looked at and are being discussed with the labor groups to see that a reasonable outcome can be achieved, recognizing that the objective is that Air Canada, over a long period of time, can ensure that it has something that is sustainable. The deficit right now is at about $2.1 billion, so it's better than it was a couple of years ago. So we've actually tackled that through good investment strategies, but it still is at a very, very high level. And of course, there's a risk that if interest rates should go down in the future, or stock markets should go down, just based on the size of it, that it could damage survivability.
Thank you for taking the time to follow up on the information provided during the Employee Roadshow, Kaylin. This level of transparency is very important to all of us.
Well, thank you, Priscilla. It was my pleasure, and for sure we'll do it again.
Et si vous avez des questions, écrivez-nous à horizon@aircanada.ca.